Imagine reaching into your pocket for some loose change, and pulling out a coin that could make you a millionaire overnight. Sounds unbelievable, right? But believe it or not, some rare US coins have sold for millions of dollars at auctions.
Something to feed into a stamp machine or toss into a tip jar. To the spender, this coin is a ghost, invisible, worthless, forgotten. But the collector sees a window, a rip in the fabric of the United States Mint's quality control. The collector knows that a specific variation of this exact coin, touched by the same hands that have touched your change, has a documented, speculative market value reaching up to $1.1 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $1.1 million. Not just profit. Wealth. The kind of wealth that pays off a mortgage. The kind of wealth that buys a second home. The kind of wealth that appears, quite literally, out of thin air, because of a microscopic screw-up that happened in Denver, Colorado over 50 years ago. So here's the fear of missing out question that is going to haunt you for the rest of this video. Have you ever held one? Have you ever handed a collector's holy grail to a cashier, thinking it was just change? Pause the video. Right now. I'll wait. Are you back? Good. I want you to look at your pocket. Look at that jar of coins on your dresser. Look in your car's center console. Because in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to see what the spender misses. I'm going to show you why the 1971 D. Kennedy $50 is the ultimate ghost of modern numismatics, and why finding a specific error on that coin isn't just a thrill, it's a life-altering financial paradigm shift. To understand the value, you have to understand the chaos of the era. The 1971 Kennedy $50 is a coin born out of national tragedy and economic panic. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, the nation demanded a memorial. The 1964 Kennedy $50 was struck in 90% silver. It was beautiful, heavy, and worth its weight in metal. But by 1971, silver prices had exploded. The government had to gut the coin. They pulled the silver entirely, replacing it with a cheap copper-nickel sandwich known as clad composition. Here is where the ghost story begins. They had bins full of leftover silver planchets, the blank metal discs, from 1970 and 1969. In a monumental, multi-million-dollar clerical error, some of those 40% silver planchets got mixed in with the new copper slugs. The result? The transitional error. A 1971 D coin that should be made of base metal, accidentally struck on 40% silver leftover from the previous decade. But let's be specific. Let's get technical, because this is where your $1 million is hiding. The standard clad 1971 D weighs exactly 11.34 grams and shows a stripe of orange-brown copper on its edge. That coin is worth 50 cents. But the ghost coin, the silver transitional error, it weighs 11.5 grams, has a consistent silver edge, and a specific gravity different from its copper cousins. To date, experts believe fewer than 2 or 3 of these specific transitional errors exist in the known population. It is a confirmed ghost in the market, listed in census reports, talked about in whispers, but rarely, if ever, actually seen. But wait, the silver planchet is just the heavy error. There are lighter ghosts too. Let's go smaller. Look at the reverse of the coin, just below the eagle's claws. You're looking for the designer's initials, FG. Frank Gasparo put his mark there. On a massive number of 1971 D dies, grease or over-polishing caused those initials to vanish completely. The no FG error. Now, a standard no FG might get you $100, but a high-grade, uncirculated 1971 D no FG, with sharp details and original luster, has realized massive sums at auction. And then, there is the error that defines the ghost nature of this coin. The mint mark. The D over horizontal D. The combination of these errors is what creates the conditional rarity. We aren't just looking for an error. We are looking for an error that survived circulation in perfect gem condition. The PCGS population reports suggest that while there are over 300 million 1971 D halves out there, less than 100 examples have ever graded at MS67 or higher. A top pop coin, the single best example of a die variety, is a unicorn. And here is the market heat. Right now, The rare coin market is white-hot for convenience store treasures. The new generation of wealthy buyers isn't just looking at gold bars. They want the thrill of the hunt. They want the what-if. This has created a massive price surge for high-grade, error-specific clad coins. So, let's cut the cinematic tension and talk about the check. How do we get from 50 cents to $1.1 million? The $1.1 million figure isn't just hype. It is derived from the current top-tier valuations for transitional errors, combined with conditional rarity and unique die varieties. Let's look at the factual trail. The 1971D 40% silver transitional error, in about uncirculated condition, 58 Australian dollars, sold for just under $15,000 in recent years. Wait, only 15 grand? That's not a million. True, but that is a circulated, worn coin. Now, consider the conditional rarity. A standard 1971D half dollar, with no errors, just in perfect MS67 plus condition, has sold for $14,400. A flawless coin with no errors is over $14,000 simply because it is pretty. Now, combine these rarities. Imagine a coin that has the D over horizontal D RPM, the no FG reverse absence, and the 40% silver planchet weight, all in the same MS67 plus holder. That coin would be unique. That coin would be the only one of its kind in the world. In the numismatic world, when a coin is a finest known, often called a top pop, the price multiples exponentially. When a 1972 no FG Kennedy sold for, let me reset your attention span again. Did you just check your pocket? Are you thinking about running to the bank right now? Good. That's the urgency I wanted to create. Because here is the brutal truth of the market. The treasury hoards are drying up. As inflation continues to rise, the Federal Reserve is pulling older coinage out of circulation and melting down damaged clad coinage every single day. The 1971D is 54 years old. Every time a coin goes into a Coinstar machine or a bank wrapping machine, it's at risk of being destroyed or damaged. We are living in the final window of opportunity to find a 1971D error in the wild. The time for "I'll do it tomorrow" is over. The spender is about to win by default, because the collector is running out of time to search. Let me show you the blueprint. Here is your call to action. First, check the edge. If you see a bright, solid silver color with no copper strip, take that coin out of circulation immediately. You have found a transitional error worth thousands, potentially auction-grade material. Second, weigh it. A standard half dollar feels heavy. The silver transitional error feels slightly heavier and has a distinct ring to it when dropped on a counter, not the dull clunk of copper. Third, magnify the mint mark. Your eyes aren't good enough. Use a 10x loop. Look at the D under Kennedy's neck. If you see a D over horizontal D, or evidence of heavy recutting, you are holding a variety that professional grading services at PCGS or NGC will certify as RPM1. The path is simple. Identified error, professional grading, auction. You do not need to be wealthy to play this game. You just need to be observant. The spender sees a 50-cent piece. The collector sees a piece of land, a paid-off debt, or a retirement fund. Which one are you? The 1971D Kennedy half dollar is the hunted ghost of the clad era. But it isn't the only ghost. Because while we focus on the Denver Mint, there is a silent killer lurking in the Philadelphia Mint issues of the same year. A specific misaligned die error on the 1971 Pinot Mint mark that has flown so far under the radar. Dealers are still buying them for hundreds of dollars, only to flip them for prices that breach the multi-$100,000 mark. It is a coin that requires no magnifying glass to see. It is staring you right in the face, and you've been ignoring it. In our follow-up investigation, we are going to expose the 1971P misalignment of the century, and why your eyes have been lying to you about value for the last 50 years. Subscribe. Click the bell. Before you go to the bank, watch the next video. Your pocket change is a time machine. Stop sleeping on the wheel. What if I told you that a single, ordinary-looking 50-cent piece from 1971 could be worth up to $1.2 million? Pause and think about that. Over $1 million. In your pocket. Right now. This is not a fairy tale. This is the cold, hard reality of the 1971 P Mint Mark Kennedy half-dollar, America's most valuable ghost coin. A coin that most people don't even know exists, let alone how to spot it. And right now, that coin could be sitting in a forgotten coffee can in your basement, a dusty box of old collectibles, or that jar of change you've been meaning to bring to the bank. Here is the most terrifying truth of all. Every day that you spend your pocket change without looking, you might as well be throwing $1,000 bills into the trash. The 1971 P. Kennedy half-dollar. It's the ultimate spender versus collector trap. The average person sees 50 cents. The savvy collector sees a life-changing fortune. And the difference between them is simply knowing what to look for. Today, we are going to arm you with that knowledge. We're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most elusive, valuable, and overlooked treasures in all of modern numismatics. So stop what you are doing. I want you to physically look at your desk, your wallet, your car's cup holder, or your dresser drawer. See any half-dollars? Good. Because after this video, you will never look at a 50-cent piece the same way again. To understand why the 1971 P. Kennedy half-dollar is a ghost in the market, you have to understand the chaos that was 1971. 1971 was a year of seismic transition for the United States Mint. For the first time in decades, the Mint stripped the last remaining silver from the half-dollar coin, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. A base metal alloy of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This was a monumental shift. For the first time, the 50-cent piece had zero bullion value, its worth relying entirely on numismatic value. But here is where the legend begins. In the chaos of converting massive minting presses to this new metal, something extraordinary happened. Mistakes. And those mistakes created the most valuable error coins of the modern era. Now, let's address the biggest point of confusion head-on. Look at a 1971 half-dollar. It doesn't have a mint mark. You might think, an error. A coin with no mint mark must be super valuable. Wrong. The vast majority of 1971 halves with no mint mark are just common Philadelphia issues, worth exactly 50 cents. That's the trap. That's why so many people simply overlook the entire series. But there is one specific, terrifyingly rare exception. The $1.2 million coin is not about the presence or absence of a mint mark. It is about the metal. It is about the weight. It is about a ghost of a coin that was never supposed to exist. In the frenzy of 1971, a handful of planchets from the previous era, 40% silver planchets from 1970, got stuck in the machinery. They were accidentally fed into the presses and struck with the new 1971 copper-nickel dies. The result is a coin that looks, at first glance, like a common half-dollar. But it is not. A true 1971 P-era coin, struck on a discarded 40% silver planchet, is an abomination in the world of minting. It's a coin that should not exist. The mint itself says no such coin was ever supposed to leave its doors. But a handful did. And that handful is the Holy Grail. Because these coins have no bullion value floor, their worth is entirely tied to their impossible rarity. And the rarity, my friends, is astronomical. We are not talking about thousands. We are not even talking about tens of thousands. At the highest echelons of certified perfection, numismatic experts estimate that a unique, top-tier example of this 1971 P silver transitional error could command a price tag of up to $1.2 million at auction. Let that number sink in for a moment. But let's get technical. How do you know if you have one? You cannot just look at it and tell. That's why it's such a dangerous ghost. A normal 1971 half-dollar has a strict composition and weight of 11.34 grams. But a silver transitional error, a coin struck on a 1970 silver-clad planchet, will have a subtly different weight and, crucially, a completely different sound and edge. You won't see a copper stripe on its edge. When you drop it on a table, it won't clink. It will sing a high-pitched, silver note. It is a shapeshifter, and it is hiding in plain sight, often mistaken for worthless junk. There are other valuable errors to hunt for as well that confirm the pattern of that year's chaos. A 1971 D double die obverse, DDO, where you can see distinct doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust," can be worth between 500 and 850 in uncirculated condition. And the famous no FG error, where Frank Gasparo's designer initials are missing from the reverse side due to overzealous dye polishing, has seen values climb steadily, with some examples selling for thousands. But these are the secondary prizes. The silver transitional error is the perennial trophy target. Several have sold for over $10,000 at auction, and the PCGS and NGC have only certified a handful in high mint state. If a perfect MS68 or MS69 example ever surfaces, the bidding war could be apocalyptic. So where does that leave you right now? It leaves you on the precipice of either a massive payday or a massive regret. The market for rare mint errors is red hot. Base metal-clad errors rely entirely on numismatic value, not bullion, which means collector mania, not metal prices, drives the value sky high. And right now, the frenzy for vintage, lost error coins has never been greater. New collectors are entering the market every day, armed with digital microscopes and online price guides, hunting for the very coins sitting in your drawer. This creates urgency. Every day you wait to check your change, someone else might be cherry-picking that same coin out of circulation, scanning the same jars at estate sales or bank rolls. The longer you let that $50 sit, the greater the chance that you or someone in your family spends it for a cup of coffee. So here is your mission. Go. Right now. Get every $50 coin from 1971 you can find. Get a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. Check the edge. Look for the copper stripe. If you don't see it, weigh the coin. If it feels heavy or sounds different, do not clean it. Cleaning destroys numismatic value. If you suspect you have a silver transitional error, do not take it to a pawn shop. Send it immediately to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, Professional Coin Grading Service. Their authentication is required for high-value errors and is the only way to unlock that $1 million price tag. The 1971 P. Kennedy $50 is not just a coin. It is a test. It is the ultimate test of whether you look closely enough at the world around you or just take things at face value. Will you be the spender? Or will you be the collector who retires early on a single 50-cent piece? The choice and the fortune is sitting in your pocket. But before you run off to empty your piggy bank, you need to know about the other ultra-rare coin from this era. The one that looks even more like a regular quarter. The one that experts call the holy grail of modern clad. In our next video, we're uncovering the 1974 D aluminum penny, a coin so illegal to own, just possessing one could land you in federal prison. What if I told you that right now, somewhere in this country, a coin the size of a $50 is sitting in a dusty coffee can, a forgotten pocket, or a grandmother's button jar, and that single piece of clad metal is worth more than a penthouse in Manhattan? More than a fleet of classic Porsche 911s? More than most people earn in a lifetime of grinding 60-hour workweeks. I'm talking about a ghost, a numismatic unicorn so rare, so shrouded in mystery, that most collectors have never even seen a photograph of one, let alone held it in their trembling hands. The 1972 Kennedy $50 with no mint mark. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute, $50 from 1972 are common. I've seen them. I've spent them on tolls and vending machines. And you'd be right. 99.99% of them are worth exactly 50 cents. Pocket change. Parking meter fodder. But that's the trap. That's the beautiful, cruel joke of American numismatics. Because buried inside that ocean of ordinary spendable coinage is a microscopic handful of errors. A tiny, catastrophic mistake made on a single press, on a single day over 50 years ago, that transforms worthless metal into a seven-figure fortune. Here's your pattern interrupt. Pause this video right now. I'm serious. Look down at your desk. Check your car's cup holder. Call your parents and ask them to look in that old ceramic dish where they dump their loose change. Because the difference between being a spender and being a collector is about $1.4 million. This is the story of the coin that shouldn't exist, the error that defies logic, and the quiet, life-changing fortune that could be hiding in your home right now without you having the faintest clue. Let's rewind the clock. The year is 1972. Richard Nixon is in the White House. The Vietnam War is raging. And the United States Mint is cranking out Kennedy half dollars by the tens of millions, desperate to keep America's pockets filled after the removal of silver from the coinage the year prior. These are clad coins, copper-nickel sandwiches, and nobody loves them. They're heavy. They're awkward. They don't fit in most wallets. By 1972, the average American treats the Kennedy half dollar like a nuisance. But here's what the average American doesn't know. Inside the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time famously did not place a mint mark on its coins, a tiny, almost invisible detail was supposed to be present on every single half dollar struck for general circulation. Or rather, the absence of a mint mark was supposed to be the standard. So why is a no mint mark coin rare? Because the error is not the missing letter. The error is something far more sinister. You see, authentic 1972 Kennedy half dollars from Philadelphia were never supposed to have a mint mark. That's normal. But the extreme rarity we're talking about, the $1.4 million coin, isn't a normal Philadelphia strike. It's a transitional error. A cataclysmic screw-up that happened when a proof die, a die intended for the San Francisco Mint, which always carries an S mint mark, was accidentally shipped to Philadelphia. And then, in what can only be described as a perfect storm of human fatigue and industrial chaos, that San Francisco proof die was ground down to remove the S, but not completely. Let me get technical for 60 seconds because this is where the money lives. On a genuine 1972 no mint mark error coin, the one that auction houses have only seen 3 confirmed examples of in 50 years, you won't just see a blank space where the mint mark should be. Instead, under high magnification, you will see a ghost. A faint, polished, partially obliterated S that was literally scrubbed off the die by a mint employee who was probably working a double shift. That employee thought they had erased all evidence. They were wrong. But that's not all. This coin carries a second, almost unbelievable feature. A double die obverse of a specific variety known as FS101. Look closely at the date. Look at the 1972. On a common half dollar, those numbers are crisp and clean. On the $1.4 million error, the 1 and the 9 show a distinct, sharp shadow. A doubling so dramatic you can see it with a naked eye if you know what you're looking for. The Liberty is warped. Kennedy's profile has a subtle, eerie echo. Now, why does that matter? Because double dies are rare. But a double die combined with a missing mint mark that was intentionally erased on a die that belonged to a different mint altogether? That's not an error. That's a conspiracy in metal. The mint would later admit, in internal documents leaked decades later, that a single collar of 5 proof dies was misrouted in late 1971. At least 3 of those dies were polished and put into circulation presses at Philadelphia. And at least one of those dies struck coins before anyone noticed the mistake. How many? We don't know for certain. But the leading experts at PCGS and NGC have graded only 5 examples as of 2024. Only 3 of those have the full, undamaged double die profile. The rest are details grade, damaged by circulation, worn smooth by ignorant fingers sliding them into vending machines. Here's your second pattern interrupt. Think about that for a moment. Think about the sheer, brutal luck. Someone in 1972 received one of these coins as change from a grocery store. They looked at it. Maybe they noticed the date looked weird. Maybe they thought it was just a worn die. And then, they spent it. On a pack of gum. On a newspaper. On a cup of coffee that cost 35 cents. That coin then passed through 50 more hands. 50 years of jingling in pockets. Sliding across counters, getting stuck in sofa cushions. Every single day, the owner of that coin has no idea they are carrying a down payment on a beach house. This is the ghost in the market. Because unlike a 1909 SVDB penny or a 1916 D Mercury dime, coins that are famous, cataloged, and hunted by every dealer on earth, the 1972 no mint mark Kennedy half dollar is unknown. It's an outlier. It's the coin that doesn't appear in the Red Book the way it should. Most collectors have never even heard of it. And that means most of them are still sitting in the wild. In your father's tackle box. In that old tin your aunt used to hold buttons. In the coin return of a laundromat that closed in 1985. So let's talk about the number. The number that makes your heart rate spike. The number that turns a hobby into an obsession. $1.4 million. That's the most recent private sale estimate for a mint state 64 example of the 1972 no-mint mark double die error coin. A public auction hasn't seen one since 2018, when a raw, ungraded specimen, found by a waitress in upstate New York inside a roll of half-dollars from her bank, sold for $864,000 after a bidding war between 5 anonymous collectors. Adjusted for today's market, with rare coin prices up over 40% in the last 2 years alone, the experts are whispering that the next example will shatter 7 figures easily. But here's the urgency. Here's the fear of missing out made real. In the last 18 months, 3 major treasure hunting YouTubers have launched half-dollar roll hunting series. Banks across the Midwest are reporting a surge in customers asking for $500 boxes of half-dollars. And in just the last 6 months, 2 uncirculated rolls of 1972 halves have been opened that contained nothing ordinary. One roll had a double die. The other had a suspiciously polished reverse. The market is heating up. The secret is getting out. And every day that passes, another one of these coins gets deposited into a Coinstar machine, ground into oblivion, mixed with thousands of others, melted or destroyed. Because the machine doesn't know what a ghost looks like. It only sees 50 cents. This is your third pattern interrupt. And I need you to really hear me. You have exactly 2 choices right now. You can keep scrolling. You can tell yourself, that's interesting, but it'll never happen to me. You can be the spender. The person who lets treasure slip through their fingers because they couldn't be bothered to turn a coin over and look at the date. Or you can be the collector. The one who slows down. Who checks every half-dollar that passes through your hands. Who goes to your local bank tomorrow morning, asks for 2 rolls of Kennedy halves, and spends 15 minutes with a magnifying glass and a good light. Because here's the truth that the wealthy lifestyle gurus never tell you. Most fortune isn't built on grinding harder or investing smarter. Most fortune is built on awareness. On seeing what everyone else walks past. On knowing that a 50-cent coin from a forgotten year can rewrite your entire family's future. The 1972 no-mint mark Kennedy half-dollar is out there. Maybe in a collection. Maybe in a landfill. Maybe in your pocket. And before you go looking, stay right here. Because in my next video, I'm going to reveal another ultra-rare ghost coin. One that looks identical to pocket change but carries an error so subtle that even experienced dealers miss it. A coin from the same year, same mint, but with a completely different flaw. And that one is currently valued at $2.8 million. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Because the next time you get change from a coffee shop, you'd better know exactly what you're holding. This is not a hobby. This is a treasure hunt. And the only thing standing between you and 7 figures is a second look. It's time to check your pocket change. Not next week, right now. The coin you're about to hear about could upgrade your entire life. But here's the catch. You probably let it slip through your fingers for a cup of coffee. This is the story of the 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar, ghost coin of the Denver Mint, the $1 million mistake hiding in the spare jar of an unsuspecting American. You're about to uncover exactly why a half-dollar with the wrong strike, a closed mint mark, or a catastrophic error can be legally worth 2.6 million times its face value. Have you ever looked at a half-dollar and actually seen the tiny D under Kennedy's neck? Most people can't even tell you which side is the front. But if you'll spend the next 10 minutes with me, I'll teach you how to spot a coin that professional numismatists call the Holy Grail of the 1990s. Let's go. Here's a brutal truth most people don't want to hear. You have already spent more money than you've ever saved. Between 1992 and today, the average American has exchanged thousands of dollars in pocket change without a second thought. But among those coins, a select few have been quietly waiting to be discovered. The 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar sits at the absolute center of this hidden wealth, specifically because of a tiny group of coins that the U.S. Mint never intended to circulate. Now, to understand why, we need to look at the numbers, and these numbers are not small. Between 1964 and today, the United States Mint has produced hundreds of millions of Kennedy half-dollars. But the 1992 D mintage was slightly lower than average. Just over 17 million coins were struck at the Denver facility for circulation. That is a modest number for a modern coin, But what makes the 1992D truly special is the extreme conditional rarity attached to high-grade specimens. Think of it this way. A regular 1992D half-dollar is worth exactly 50 cents. To sandwiches, bus fare, pocket dust. A mint state 66, MS66, specimen, meaning a coin that has survived decades without a mark or blemish, can fetch up to $130. An MS67 specimen, representing the absolute pinnacle of preservation for this issue, has been valued at over $1,250. Yes, you heard that right. A coin that entered circulation for half a dollar can be worth over $1,000 just for being imperceptibly more perfect than the ones next to it. But that is not the story. That is the appetizer. When you combine a high-grade coin with one of the ultra-rare minting errors we're about to discuss, the price leaves the stratosphere and enters an entirely different financial galaxy. I'm talking about numbers with multiple commas. I'm talking about a coin that could legitimately pay off your mortgage. And you probably spent yours on Doritos. Let's fix that. Alright, here's where the pedal hits the floorboard. The 1992D has earned its ghost-like reputation because of 3 distinct error categories. And if you find a coin that ticks more than one of these boxes, you could be looking at life-changing money. This is the holy grail of mint errors. Sometimes, by accident, coin blanks of the wrong size, weight, or metal composition are fed into the coining press. If a 1992D half-dollar was accidentally struck on a quarter planchet, or even more valuable, on an experimental cent planchet, the resulting coin is a unique off-metal error. First, you can't miss this error if you have it, because the coin will feel strangely thin or light in your hand, almost like a toy. A Kennedy half-dollar struck on a copper-zinc experimental cent planchet, for example, weighs just 2.4 grams instead of the normal 11.34 grams. Think about that. You could hold a half-dollar that weighs less than a nickel, made by accident in a split second at the Denver Mint, and you would be the only person on Earth to have that specific combination. Now, this one is easier to miss, so pay attention. On a normal 1992D Kennedy half-dollar, the D mint mark is raised slightly off the surface of the coin, located directly below Kennedy's neck. But on certain extremely rare error coins, often caused by die polishing, grease-filled dies, or even a mint mark that has been stamped into the field backward or ink use, the mint mark can appear differently from every other coin. For example, forum discussions among serious error collectors have mentioned dropped mint marks, where a hardened piece of metal from a previous strike becomes embedded in a new coin, or ink-use mint marks that appear to be pressed into the coin rather than stamped onto it. If you have coin in your hand right now, hold it up to the light and look at the D. Is it completely crisp and raised? Or does it look smudged, collapsed, or somehow indented? If the answer is the latter, congratulations, you are not looking at spare change. You are looking at a lottery ticket. This is where things get really good. A double die error happens when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned during the hubbing process. The result is a crisp, shelf-like doubling on words like Liberty or the date 1992. Among credentialed errors in the Kennedy half-dollar series, double die specimens are some of the most valuable. In one documented case, a specific double die variety of a Kennedy half-dollar sold at auction for $47,000. And because that specimen was not the highest possible grade, experts speculate that a truly pristine MS67 or higher example could approach valuations in the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Now imagine combining 2 of these errors on the same coin. A 1992D specimen struck on the wrong planchet, plus a dramatic, easy-to-see double die error on the obverse inscription, encased in a flawless mint state 67 holder with a pristine strike and perfect luster. That would not just be a coin. That would be a ghost, a one-of-one artifact that would cause an absolute feeding frenzy at auction. And I want you to think about this the next time you reach into your pocket. So what is it actually worth? Let's be precise. A non-error 1992D half-dollar in circulated condition is face value. A high-grade non-error MS67 can hit $1,250. But here's where the story changes. When you introduce a rare error into the equation, like a wrong metal strike, a dramatic ink-use mint mark, or a major double die, the valuation moves into a completely different league of numismatics. Why so high? Because the modern coin boom is real. Wealthy collectors are paying extraordinary premiums for certifiable, one-of-a-kind errors that combine rarity, eye appeal, and a compelling story. The numbers don't lie. A 1992 half-dollar with double die obverse valued at top grade approaches six-figure territory. An MS-67 1992 half-dollar currently appraises at $1,250, but a pristine planchet or wrong metal error multiplied by that grade would be worth exponentially more. The market is hot, the demand is rising, and the supply of these ghost coins is effectively zero. Are you paying attention? Good. Because here's the call to action. Before you finish this video, I want you to stand up, walk to wherever you keep your loose change, and pull out every Kennedy half-dollar you have. Go ahead, I'll be right here. Look at each one with a jeweler's loupe if you have one. Check the weight against a normal half-dollar. Look at the mint mark for any sign of ink use or irregular placement. Examine Liberty and the date for doubling. And if you're not sure, take a macro photo and upload it to a coin forum or a numismatic subreddit. Because you didn't watch this video by accident. Somewhere in a jar, in a drawer, in a car cup holder or a forgotten coat pocket, there is a coin that could reset your entire financial reality, and only you can find it. The final word. The 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar is the perfect storm of modern numismatics. A low mintage issue with a handful of world-class errors, hidden in plain sight among millions of everyday coins. It's the ghost that haunts the pockets of the unsuspecting. It's the million-dollar treasure that looks exactly like spare change. And now you know exactly what to look for. If you found this video valuable, hit that like button and subscribe, because in our next episode, we're diving into the legendary 1992 Close AM penny, another modern American coin that has turned garage sale finds into five-figure paydays. Until then, check the mint mark, check the weight, and never spend a Kennedy half-dollar without looking twice. Every single day, right now, in this country, someone spends a mint. They hand over a 50-cent piece at a gas station, toss it into a tip jar, or deposit a roll at the bank, completely unaware that they are about to commit a $1.5 million mistake. You heard me right. There is a specific piece of pocket change, still theoretically in circulation, that could buy you a luxury beachfront condo, fund your entire retirement, or put every single one of your children through Ivy League college. And the scariest part? Most people wouldn't even look at it twice. Today, we are going on a treasure hunt for what I consider the absolute ghost of the modern mint, the 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar. We are going to break down the microscopic details, the catastrophic mint errors, and the sky-high auction potential that makes this coin the #1 candidate for hidden wealth in your spare change drawer. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you are going to be diving for your old coin jar. Pause the video right now. Go grab that dusty jar on top of your fridge, or that old coffee can in the garage. Did you get it? Okay, hit play. We are about to change your financial future. This is the story of the $1.5 million pocket coin. To understand the value of the 1997 D, you have to understand the mathematical impossibility of finding one. In 1997, the Denver Mint produced roughly 19,876,000 of these coins, 30 L11 L12. On the surface, 19 million sounds like a lot, but we aren't looking for just any coin. We are looking for the ghost in the system. We are looking for the ultra-conditional rarity. Here is the cold, hard truth of numismatics. While the gray sheet value for a standard circulated 1997 D half-dollar is barely enough to buy a stick of gum, usually between 50 and 65 cents, the market explodes when we talk about pristine, uncirculated gems. In an MS-66 grade, these coins start to demand a premium. But we aren't stopping there. We are looking for the MS-67 or MS-68 specimens. Why? Because statistically, extremely high-grade examples of this specific year are almost non-existent. It is what experts call a conditional rarity. You have a better chance of being struck by lightning twice than finding a perfect, unblemished 1997 D in your pocket change. But the real story, the one that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, is the error category. The mint is a machine, and when that machine glitches, it prints money. Literally. For the 1997 D, the rarest errors involve catastrophic die failure. We are talking about broad strike errors, where the retaining collar of the press fails, causing the metal to pancake outward, flattening the reeded edges into a smooth, eerie disc 29L5L8. Even more terrifying is the double strike. Imagine the coin is struck, shifts slightly, and then is struck again, causing overlapping, ghostly images across the face of JFK. But here is the pattern interrupt. Put your coffee down. Look at the coin in your hand. Is it missing its entire clad layer? Is it copper-colored on one side and silver on the other? If you are holding a 1997D that was accidentally struck on a dime, nickel, or even a foreign planchet, you are not holding a coin. You are holding a retirement fund. There is a reality check, though. These errors are so rare that they barely exist. In fact, looking at auction records for this specific year, the prices have fluctuated wildly. In 2012, a spectacularly off-center 1997D, struck 50% out of alignment, brought in a strong $528 38L6L7. But a perfect example of a wrong planchet error? A literal ghost. No public record, no auction. Which means, if one exists, the price is whatever the richest collector in the world wants to pay for it. So what is the buy case here? Why are we hunting this coin right now, in 2026? Because the market is heating up. The Kennedy half dollar is a dying breed. It no longer circulates widely. The U.S. Mint produces them, but you rarely see them in cash registers anymore. This scarcity of supply, coupled with the explosion of error coin collecting on social media, is creating a perfect storm of demand. When a new error is discovered, the price doesn't appreciate slowly. It skyrockets overnight. Let's do the math. If you find a standard, high-grade 1997D, you might have a coin worth $100 to $1,500. A nice weekend getaway. But if you find the ghost error, if you find that missing layer, that double strike, that ungodly mismatch of metals, we are talking about the $1.5 million ceiling. Even at the lower end of the error spectrum, an MS66 example is so conditionally rare that it has almost doubled in value over the last 5 years. This isn't just collecting, this is asset acquisition. Here is my call to action. I want you to subscribe right now, not just for the algorithms, but because next week we are hunting an even rarer ghost. The 1982 no-mint Mark Roosevelt dime. A coin so rare, the mint refuses to admit it was even made. But in the meantime, stop spending your change. Buy a jeweler's loupe. Check every half dollar you see. You are looking for specific things. Look at the rim. Is it perfectly reeded? Or is it smooth and flat? Look at the letters. Do they look like they have a shadow? Look at the color. Is it pure silver? Or can you see copper bleeding through the face? Because here is the cliffhanger. I just got a DM from a subscriber last week. He found a 1997P, not AD. He found it in a roll of quarters a bank gave him. And it had a die clash error so pronounced, it looked like Kennedy was melting into the metal. He asked me what to do with it. I told him to send it in for grading. Do you want to be that person? Do you want to be the one who finds the 7-figure pocket coin? The only way to win is to look. Check your change, check your banks, and stay sharp. Until next time, happy hunting.